Hello, my name is Cheyenne Schwinn. I am a student here at Full University in the game design program. This is my presentation for February, my month 6 sprint, my first sprint. So this is the work that I've been doing for the first 2 weeks. So as I said, February month 6, I am currently in Robert Kennedy's second class, and I am an online remote student from Illinois. I currently have a total of 50 hours and 40 minutes. Since last time I checked, I did do a meeting today, so it's probably around 51 hours or so. I completed this month total 50 hours and 40 minutes, and then the monthly expected hours is 100. I will be having about 100 hours at the end of the month. That is my goal. So I have had quite a few achievements and new things that I've tried out these past 2 weeks. So I started deep diving into character creation and practicing and researching how to use Blender. Blender is basically a 3D modeling application that I really wanted to learn how to use. So I've been looking up YouTube videos about how to use Blender. I use Blender Guru. He's a really good person to look up. He teaches how to do a bunch of different things. I also learned how to do other stuff with Blender through other YouTube channel videos. So I successfully also learned how to use basic tools in Blender and started refining my new skills in 3D modeling. I've had a lot of fun doing 3D modeling, and I've also looked into how to use Adobe 3D Substance Blender. So I have been working on that as well. So it's a really big achievement for me because I've never actually done something like that, and I didn't think I'd be able to. So when I started doing it, I was really excited and I'm very proud of myself for getting that skill and being able to do something like that. So my objectives was to research Blender and learn how to use each tool efficiently, and research Unreal Engine and learn how to use common tools within the program. I'm going to be doing this next week because I wasn't able to use Unreal since I was practicing the Substance Blender and for Adobe first. So I started doing that first. I learned how to, or I'm going to be learning how to create environmental items like props, weapons, and other item meshes, and plan to sit with someone, which I did yesterday. We sat for hours and learned how to use the Substance Painter, and I watched her do a few things. I watched a few videos on how to do it myself. Not too much because I didn't want to totally watch someone else do it. I wanted to sort of learn for myself, so I just got some pointers from her and did my own project instead of doing what I did with Blender, because I had to learn Blender myself because no one else knew how to use it. I was able to use Blender like that. I have yet to figure out how to do the environmental things and props and weapons and such. I've only been working on character clothes, so that is the most I got out of my skills. But I'm still refining my skills, and I need to practice way more. I did have a few issues. I actually was having a hard time figuring out how to use the Blender tools, even though I had videos to go off of since I was learning Blender from scratch, and just taking what people were telling me and showing me how to do it on a video. I couldn't ask questions. I couldn't, show them the issues that I'm having and then have them help me with it like I was able to do with Substance Blender. So it was a little harder to, or Substance Painter. It was a little harder to do Blender because I didn't have that backup like I did with the Substance Painter. So my first model was not what I was hoping it would look like. It looked a little off, and I didn't really understand how to connect like the normal channels and the uh, ray maps. I don't remember exactly what they're called, but just all the different maps. I didn't understand what they were or what they did. And I don't think I plugged them in correctly, so the mesh looked a little shiny and weird for the type of material it was, which was like a cloth clothing kind of thing. It looked like it was wet, which didn't make any sense. So it wasn't too bad for the first try, but I really need to practice a lot more and get better, so I will be where I want to be. my Unreal Engine actually wasn't letting me run the game, even though the build and everything was in there. It had a bunch of the folders in there. It looked all normal, and everything was downloaded from GitHub, so it was all the same exact files as everyone else. For some reason, when I opened it, it did not show anything. Like, the folders were there, but the contents in them were not. I also got word of another person that was having that issue. That apparently they couldn't see it either. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I'm going to be practicing with Unreal Engine a little bit, and maybe I could figure it out. Or I'm going to try to download it either on my PC here in a different file or a different drive, or I'm going to try to download it on my laptop. So I'll have to see what way it goes for that. Yeah. So, we are on to the stuff that I've been learning. This was in week 1, was character creation and learning how to use Blender. This was my first attempt in actually using Blender, and I tried making a base outfit for the main character. So I was trying to take the bones and put the mesh on top of it. I didn't really understand bones and mesh at the time, and as you can see, there's little like faces all over the arms. Apparently, I found out that there was multiple bones in the file, which I didn't notice at first, but when I looked at it, there was like one with hands that look like they could have mittens on it. One looks like they could have gloves on them. One was bare hand with like fingernails, and I realized that I had the mesh on 4 sets of bones, so that I had to like figure that out after I was literally done with everything, texturing the shirt and everything. But this was the first attempt that I had learning Blender. I then moved on to the textures. As you can see, there's the little menu there, and I didn't understand what any of this was at all. So when I was plugging in things, I didn't really understand what I was doing. As you see, I have metalness into base color, and I don't think that's how that was supposed to work. So this was my first attempt in doing the textures when making the base outfit for the main character and the texture connections. It was wrong, but it was my first try, and I still felt like I sort of understood it after a little bit because I had to watch someone else do it, and then I had to copy what he was doing. So as you can see, I fixed it here. I got the color on the base color, and then I got the metalness on metallic. I think that's how that was supposed to go. But it was just a big learning curve for me because I never used Blender before, and I never used a menu system like this before. I know Unreal Engine, I think, has something like this, so this was brand new to me too. The textures, as you can see, they're very shiny, so I knew that something seemed off. But I tried my best to figure out and understand what I was doing. Here I added more textures and pretty much finished adding the textures that were pre-made, and that's what it turned out to be like. And then here is more texturing. I finished adding the textures to the pants and the shirt model. It was a little less shiny, but it still had that shiny-esque look to it, and I still didn't understand what was going on with that, so that's how the textures were added in on for this. As you can see, it looks like the shirt is wet, which I'm not exactly sure what was going on with that, so I'm gonna have to re-look at that and see what I did, and maybe I could figure out and understand more of how to later on connect textures and things like that. But that was the final outcome of my very first trial in texture and mesh design. So that was the front, that was the back. That's towards the front and the side and the shoulder. And then here you see that I had an arm pocket that was stretched out and weird with the texture. So I had to move the mesh, the arm mesh, to get it to fit to the bones. And when I did that, I didn't realize that I was going to be messing up the textures that were already pre-made for this character. So when I did it, I messed up the textures and everything was stretched out and weird. And I was unable to fix it. I tried resculpting it and just making the shirt bigger, smaller. I shrunk things. I deleted and re-entered things. It just didn't work out. But that's how it ended up turning out there. So moving on to learning how to use Blender and Adobe Substance 3D Painter. So I made another Blender file and added everything the same, but instead of modifying the model, I posed it and set up the file to be exported to Adobe Substance Painter. So I decided to do custom texturing instead of taking the textures that were already pre-made, because I had to fit the mesh to fit our bones. So I felt like this was just the better idea to go. So this was the first time that I actually used Substance Painter to texture something. So this was week 2. I did this throughout this whole week. I learned how to use the Adobe Substance 3D Painter. So in here I fixed the Blender model, and I exported the FBX, I think it's called, to go into the Adobe Substance 3D Painter. And as you can see, I fixed the arm, and I got rid of the many meshes that were sitting there, and just had the one plain mesh that had the fingernails on it. So that was without gloves, without mittens, without anything else covering it, just a regular human arm and hand. And I used that one. So then I took the mesh, imported it, imported the revised mesh into Substance Blender, and started my journey into texturing. So I tried out the textures and learned how to navigate through the application with the help of a Blades and Bullets team member, which is Lisa Keithley, I think, Keithley. She allowed me to sit in with her and watch her work while I practiced on my own project, which was this one. So I was able to be able to get a decent base. I fully textured. I got really into it, so I didn't get work in progress textures when I was just adding them in, because I was learning how to use the application. So this is how it turned out after I added the edited textures in it. And that's how it ended up. That was my first rendition of the base outfit, and I decided to continue with that model and add some more details to make it more realistic, kind of. And I also realized after working with it for a little while that the prior textures had things like stitches for the pockets and for the arm pockets and the belt loops, and I didn't have that, so I had to recreate that, and that's gonna come in a few minutes, but I had to redo that as well. So I had to add some more details. And that was one of the finished renders from the Substance Painter camera and environment. I hand painted laces on the shoes and found a bunch of new things to use, and also worked with some texturing, like mapping. I don't exactly remember what it's called, but it changes the as you can see on the boots, it changes like the level of the face, so it looks like it has a texture on it. It's like rubbery and bumpy, and just something to indicate that this is not like a smooth cloth like the shirt is or the pants are. Yeah, so that was the final render from the Substance 3D Painter of my first mesh that it was fully textured and hand painted with details. So I was very proud of how that turned out. So I went ahead and started refining my Adobe Substance 3D Painter texturing skills, and I made another skin. This is the the second texture design that I made, and I took the file that I started the textures with and duplicated it to have a backup in case I didn't like the retexture, and then I wish I would stop saying that. A second texture rendition was made with custom texturing selections on the pants and the shirt because I just didn't want it to be overrun with camo, so I made my own rendition with just black on the shirt and then camo on the collar, the shoulder pockets, and the pants. And that's how that one turned out. I decided to do a instead of the woodland camo, the digital camo, and just saw how that would look. And I think when I talked with my team, they said the team leader said that we can go with this kind of design instead, so it's not so camo filled. So I'm probably gonna make a whole bunch of different renditions of this with a different colored shirt, like a tan shirt, a black shirt, a brown shirt, which I have the black shirt here. Yeah. So we're probably gonna go with this one. But I retextured the base and so there was less camo takeover. And then I went and tried to add some stitching and hand-drawn details. I definitely need to work on this. I didn't like how it came out because it looks like you actually just put black ink on the pants and made the belt loops. But I like how the stitching came out because it looks like actual, the painting thing that I used looked like actual stitches, like through all the pockets. So I liked how the pockets turned out. I wish I could have updated the zipper to look a little more realistic and the belt loops to look a little more realistic. But it's all a big stepping stone. I'm glad I got this far because I really doubted myself and I got to stop doing that. So after I stopped staying in my comfort zone and said, you know what? I'm going to learn Blender. I'm going to learn how to use Adobe Substance Painter. And I just did it. This is where I got. And I'm very proud of that. So I like how it came out, but I do need to really work on how I do my hand-painted details and how I work with texturing and modifying textures. And then here's the final rendition of the shirt. As you can see, I added some hand-drawn things like the wrinkles in the middle of the shirt here, and then the pockets also have a little X on them, just to give it a little more of a, I guess, a team vibe. Maybe we'll have like a logo that I could put there at some point for whatever team the character is on. I'm not sure if we're gonna have patches or something like that. I wanted to get a vest and put, like, you know how people in the army have like the Velcro patches. I know I play airsoft and I have patches on my vests for airsoft, so I wanted to do something like that. So I may talk to them about that and see if for later on, after we get a good thing going, if we can add something like that to the character model. I'm having issues trying to find a vest, but I'm gonna keep looking. And we may even put a little bit of money into this, so I may be able to get a decent looking chest rig to be able to do something like that. But yeah, I put the camo on the collar and the shoulder pockets, added some drawn details, and tried to make a patch-like design for the shoulder pockets, as you can see there. And I most likely will be changing it later, but just for now, that's a good placeholder. And that's what it looks like in a final render of the second textured mesh. That's how it turned out, and it looks pretty good. It's not so heavy on the camo side, and I think that it looks a little bit more clean and better for that. So yeah, I was pretty proud of this. The knee pads and the boots were not changed for this. It was just the shirt and the pants that were retextured and redesigned. And then the last but not least, I went into Blender and tried to make an armor plate to fit the revised and finished mesh that I made. I tried to bring in a chest rig that I found on CG Trader, which is what I've been using my assets from. Um, and it was actually a 3D printing file. It was not for this. It didn't say what file it was for. Usually it says like um, what it's for, be it Blender file or object file. Um, it didn't say that. It just said whatever. It just had, this is what it is, and then a picture. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll try it. Tried to download it. It was a 3D printing file, so I wasn't able to use that, sadly. So that's why I'm going to be looking for more chest rigs. And then I brought in another saved asset to Blender to see if I can fit it on the finalized mesh, and it still needs to be worked on. I may have to physically take each piece and put it on the character from bottom to top, using the straps first to fit it onto the mesh, and then the plates and fit it onto the mesh. So I'm going to have to practice with that a little bit to see if I can add it onto the mesh and make it look decent. So that'll be my task for week 3, and then furthering my texturing skills in the Adobe Substance Painter, and furthering my skills in the 3D modeling in Blender. I'll also be looking into Unreal Engine, as I said earlier, and trying to figure out what's going on with the file and why I can't open the game, so I can test these assets that I'm making. So yeah, that is all that I have. It was a lot. I did a whole bunch of stuff for these past 2 weeks. It's a lot of new learning, a lot of new things that I did. This presentation video will also be in my school videos playlist. I have yet to change the name of it. I'm going to be changing it to school videos and project playlist with the little book icons. But I have my LinkedIn, my Mastery Journal portfolio, my personal portfolio, and my YouTube channel, which also will have this video uploaded to it as well, and then will be in that playlist. Yeah, so if you have any questions or something like that, if you're a viewer or if you're a student, let me know. I am full of advice. If you're wanting to do Blender and you're like, hey, is this free? Yes, it's free. And it's a really fun thing to use. People use Maya a lot, but I was unable to get Maya because you actually have to pay for Maya, just like you have to pay for Adobe software, but I have Adobe software because of school. So, yeah, if you're just a watcher because you're just watching the video, thank you for watching. If you're an instructor or a student, let me know if you have any questions, and there's all my info right there. So thank you for your time, and have a great day.